Hi guys, welcome to episode 2 of The Conscious Couple. My name's Kayla.
And I am Mike.
And we are so excited today. We did our first episode last week and everyone really liked it. So we're excited for episode 2.
Diving into episode 2, we thought today would be kind of a fun day to go over all things subconscious. We thought that would be a great kind of one of our first episodes is to really dive into the subconscious mind. At the end of the day, what Kayla and I, part of our everyday life, the biggest thing that we found was the key to change in life is understanding the subconscious mind and how it works.
Yeah, I agree with that because I think what most people try to do, just not saying therapy isn't effective or anything like that, but what most people try to do with affirmations or therapy or things like that is try to change certain patterns with your thinking mind. And we don't even realize that that's only 5% of your actual mind. And then the rest of the 95% is actually subconscious. So when you understand the subconscious and how to reprogram that, that's when you can actually see like real changes. And that's why you'll notice with patterns, just different things that come up that you are like, oh, I know I shouldn't do this, but you do it anyway. Or you just find yourself unconsciously doing something, even though you're like, I know I shouldn't have done that. Or like, I didn't want to do that. It's because it's unconscious, just replaying like a film in a projector.
Yeah, well said. And one thing that Kayla just mentioned too briefly was, like affirmations are very popular right now. There's lots of stuff. Well, what is an affirmation? It's impressing the subconscious mind. That's the whole purpose. What is prayer? Prayer is impressing the subconscious mind. So at the end of the day, a lot of the things that we just that we do, these different modalities and things out there, there's a reason behind it, and it's how this, subconscious works. We've got this like supercomputer that's in our head, and we have this programming that we all receive from a very early age. So I went to a Jesuit high school for high school out here, and the Jesuits have this saying where it's, give me the child until the age of 7, and I'll show you the man. And what they mean by that is ages 0 to 7 is when we are most impressionable. It's when we're almost like we're in the oven being baked. Like it's when our mind is a sponge. We are constantly in what's called a theta state during this time frame of age, which means we're not in like a high beta brainwave state. Like we all are not. Like Kayla and I are both in a high beta talking right now, exchanging and have a conversation. A theta state is more like a impressionable state. You're just taking in, you're witnessing. And what you're really doing is you're forming subconscious beliefs, you're tying experiences to emotions, and you're actually neurally rewiring and wiring your brain for, what you call your history, your past, etc. So a lot of what we're experiencing in our day-to-day life comes from this 0 to 7 stage that we had when we were a child. And it's funny because that really is where most of our, what we deem to be issues later on in life and things like that stem from, is from early childhood. Things that we would never even remember come up. And we don't remember it on a conscious level, but that programming is deep in there. And you'll hear people talk about shadow work and, all this type of stuff. What they're talking about is they're talking about going in and rewiring and rewriting the system.
That's true. That's why whenever I do hypnosis, you guys will notice I always start asking about parents. And I'm always like, okay, what was your relationship like with your parents? And everyone's like, why are you asking that? You're not a therapist. That's exactly why. Because I know if you have a pattern and you're coming to me for a relationship issue and you're like, I just never feel this way, or I never feel chosen, or whatever it is, I know it's stemming from age 0 to 7. And actually I've heard people say that it stems from even like, pregnancy. Like even when you were like in the womb, your subconscious forms, or even past life, which I don't know enough about, but even people say from past lives, your subconscious could be programmed from that. And so it's really interesting. That's why I think a lot of people offer like past life readings too, so you can clear out like unconscious stuff that's not even from this lifetime. Like if you can't even remember age 0 to 7, something that happened, it's like, if it's from a past life, you might not even consciously remember that either. So I always describe that too, what you're saying with your brain being wired. I always describe it to them like your subconscious mind's like a film projector, and then the film that you put in it is whatever programming from 0 to 7, and then it just like literally your 3D is like a movie screen, and everything just kind of keeps playing out in different movies and different details, but it's the same basic story, the same basic beliefs over and over again.
Yeah. So, I mean, to put it kind of simply for everybody listening, the subconscious mind is basically like this supercomputer that we have running. And it's who we identify. It's the emotions we have. It's the habits that we have. And like Kayla was saying, this runs 95% of our day. And we don't consciously know this. You know, the way you wake up and get out of bed, what side of bed you get on, the first thing you do each morning, how you react, you know, to way people, you know, talk to you, look at you, all of the above. These are all programs that we've carried from a very early age. And it's becoming aware of this programming is how we begin to take a step in the, you know, direction of creating the life we want to live. It's becoming aware of, hey, I've got a lot of bad unconscious, subconscious patterns and habits that I have developed since a very early age. And this is why I keep seeing them come up in different ways later on in life. For example, if you are always attracting the wrong guy or the wrong girl, and you know this type of guy or this type of girl, and it's never working out, and you just don't know what's going wrong, this is textbook subconscious behavior. And you need to take that step back, have this level of awareness to go, hey, there's some sort of programming here. There's something, you know, I haven't yet uncovered. And this is when like the real work starts, and this is when you start to see your life begin to change, because now you're saying, hey, look, I'm recognizing the programming. I'm not happy. I don't like this programming, so I'm going to rewrite the program. And this feels weird at first. It feels uncomfortable. Sometimes you feel like you're lying to yourself. You feel like, you know, no, this is just the way I am, is what people start to say. I'm just, you know, that's just who I am. Or if you only knew what happened to me, or all of the, you know, A, B, C, and D. And guys, I know this because I was in that same boat when I started this work. And it's through repetition that you can reprogram the poor or unwanted subconscious beliefs that you have.
And the reason too, I think that it's so hard is what you're saying, like becoming aware of your subconscious mind. You're actually becoming aware of like the character that you're playing. And the reason it feels so weird is because it was never you to begin with. Like all the thoughts that you think are you, all like your emotions that you think are you, and the habits, they're literally just all stemming from subconscious. So then when you go to change it, it feels weird because you're like, well, this isn't me, or this is who I've always been, but it wasn't ever actually you. It was literally just a story that was programmed. So you're just choosing a new character. And I think the other reason I always like to explain too, the other reason it feels weird and uncomfortable is because your mind loves what it is comfortable, and it loves what makes it feel safe. So if you've always held, I describe it like with the psychocybernetic mechanism in your brain is basically like a brain thermostat, and that's where your subconscious is set at. And when you go and try to change your subconscious beliefs, you're like resetting the thermostat, and your mind is like, what are you doing? Like, we're always here. And so it will try to like throw things at you, not to test you, but like just to be like, hey, what are you doing? Like it's trying to reset your thermostat. So you might experience something. I think this is why when people say they manifest money, they'll all of a sudden get a bunch of bills, because it's their mind trying to be like, hey, like reset your thermostat where it's set at. You can override it if you keep going, but it feels uncomfortable because your mind is trying to communicate with you through your nervous system. Like, this isn't normal. Like, this isn't safe. This isn't what we're used to. But you can override it and be like, no, this is the new programming. But it does take willpower, I think, especially at first.
I love the direction you're going with that, babe, because so I've heard this in the past. So Kayla said the phrase, your nervous system. So one thing that, at least here in like the Western culture that we grew up in, you know, in the United States, all that, we are not taught how to regulate our nervous system. You know, in fact, we're kind of taught the opposite. We're taught to eat junk food. We're taught to drink it away.
Always be on your phone.
Smoke it away. You know, do drugs. You know, something to take the edge off. You know, oh, I just need to go do this. And these are very unhealthy ways to deal with, you know, stress and things like that. And unfortunately, those are like the methods of coping that our society, you know, uses in the public, you know, with television shows, media, all that. But when you learn how to regulate your nervous system, this is how you're going to actually access that subconscious. And I forgot who it was, but I once heard somebody actually say the statement, your nervous system is the subconscious mind.
I agree with that. I literally think it is like nerves stemming from it. And you can see how your mind communicate or how it like you feel anxious that's why when I try to change my subconscious beliefs, the first time I ever tried, I learned about the mind. I was so anxious. I literally like would sit on my couch and be like, oh my God, like what has happened? And it's literally because I've always had that belief. But it does work. Like we should give them different ways. You can do nervous system regulation too that are healthy, because like even before this podcast, I was literally like just overwhelmed. I don't know. I was just like anxious or something or upset. And literally right before I was like, we need to do breathing. And it was literally only 5 minutes, a 5-minute breathing. And it's just complete. It's like a mind reset where you just release whatever emotions or whatever that your body holds on to. But obviously breathing is one good way. Doing breath work.
Breath work is one of my favorites.
Yeah, me too. Shout out to Breathe with Sandy and Breathwork Beats, because they're the only two I think we do on YouTube if you need suggestions.
Yeah, both of them are great.
We also
of course classic Wim Hof.
Oh yeah, Wim Hof is great too.
Yeah, he's the OG.
They can do breath work. You can do EFT tapping. I personally don't. Have you ever tried that?
Tapping, no. I my go-tos are meditation and breathing. Me
too. And so meditation's always a good way too, because you're basically again separating from the thinking mind, which is the one that's nervous.
And again, we're gonna have people at home listening going, I just can't meditate. That I get it. I was there. I know why you're saying that. That too is just a story. And so as you start to see that everything you're saying, I can't do that because of this, or I'm not able, whatever. Everything is a story that we carry. And we say, oh, I just can't do this because of this reason. And we're our own worst enemy. Every one of us is holding ourselves back from greatness because we have stories attached to things and we justify everything. So we say like, oh, I just can't do that because of this. And we really truly trick ourselves into believing this, and that is why we stay stuck. And this is why you have that feeling of anxiety, angst. You have all this energy that is not able to flow. See, we weren't taught what we are, and what I mean by that is this body is an instrument. Okay, this is not who I am. I am not this body. I am an awareness. I am a spirit. I am a soul, and I have a body. And energy moves through the body. So just scientifically speaking, how energy works is when you put resistance, you're stopping the flow of energy. And so when we're not allowing ourselves to feel an emotion, when we're not allowing ourselves, to allow energy to flow, we're actually we're creating the sense of resistance within the mechanism, and we're surprised why it's not working. And it's because we're not allowing energy to free flow. That was a big wake-up call for me, was learning how to accept a situation, understand that everything that's happening is happening for a reason, and know that no matter what way this is panning out, it's really working in my best interest. Even if things are not going the way I want them to go, I can't see it right now, but this is working in my favor. And when you start to take a different perspective onto things, everything starts to really change. And when you're starting to now look for the good in things rather than only what, problems, fears, roadblocks, mistakes are ahead of you. We think of all of these reasons why we can't. Well, the whole trick is to actually flip the script and think of all of the reasons why this can work. And when you start to live by that, holy shit, your life changes.
I agree. And also I think the reason that people don't want, because I've had people be like, I don't want to do breath work. I just don't want to do that. I'll send them a bunch of ways, like EFT tapping. I'll send yoga is also a good way to release the energy that you're talking about too from your nervous system. But they don't want to do it. The reason you don't want to do it is because your brain is addicted to the chemicals of being literally stressed or getting the dopamine hit from drinking or smoking or going on your phone or whatever it is. That's why you want to be on your phone. It's your body is trying to regulate itself, but it's not regulating. It's a dopamine hit. And so it's it gets addicted to those chemicals, and then that's why your body is I don't want that. I don't want to actually feel calm. I want the dopamine. And then you have to consciously override it and be no, I'm going to choose this.
It's weird. I felt that same way.
Me too. I always feel like that.
I began to recognize oh my God, I'm craving being stressed.
Me too. I know. I
my
noticed
body
that too.
Is forcing me to be stressed.
And I'll notice whenever I have a time off or something, I'll be I need to do instantly. I'm what can I do during this time? It's not you just get addicted to stress. And also I think, oh my gosh, what was I going to say? It was something about what you said about I can't remember.
Well, I was talking about the meditation thing.
Yeah.
With the meditation thing too, that's something I didn't mention that I wanted to say is meditation is a practice. Like just like every single person, everyone listening to this, you all can play the piano. You may say, what do you mean? No, I can't. Well, if you sat down, you tried to learn the piano, you would eventually play the piano. Like this is the same thing as meditation. When you start to sit down and do 5 minutes, for a first week, and then the second week start to up it to 10 minutes, and you start repeating this habit, putting in place a good pattern, a pattern that is, helping, you'll be so surprised how after, a couple of days, a few weeks of this practice, how good at meditation you'll become.
That's true. I've heard so many people tell me they can't meditate, and it's literally that. It's literally because of the addiction we have to. Everything in our society is like short attention. Like all the TikToks, like scrolling, everything's fast. And so we kind of have the short attention span now, which is why you just have to retrain your brain to focus. Like you could when you were a kid, you probably were able to just like focus on something and play for hours and not think about it. And then as you get older, we just retrained our attention span to get shorter and shorter without knowing it. But you can retrain it in the other direction too with practicing meditation and stuff too. But it is like a muscle. Like it's something you have to kind of practice.
You're absolutely right. It is a muscle. And it's like the subconscious is the strongest supercomputer out there. And that's the thing that we don't understand is like the subconscious is always listening. So like the way we talk about ourselves, the thoughts we think, all of these things, the subconscious is in the background taking note of that. Anytime we talk poorly about ourselves, anytime we talk, negatively about others, this is truly one of the worst things somebody can do who's like, trying to find success, trying to get on the right path. Once you learn that that judgment is not necessary, once you learn that how to forgive others, forgive yourself, all these types of things, and you start to put them into regular practice in tandem with talking healthily, having good self-talk, you will be so surprised just how quickly your life will change.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And I think like what I was going to say before I remembered was actually like when you're talking about your perspective and changing it, it's funny because I've found that like when you like change the character and you start changing your subconscious programming, your perspective just like naturally changes. At least that's what I noticed with different things. Like I would look at things completely differently than I used to. And I'd be like, oh, that's weird that I used to like look at it this way. But it's just because you change the programming, and then the conscious mind, which is basically the lens that you're viewing everything through. It's filtering everything through subconscious beliefs. So that's why your perception also naturally changes. I mean, you can also do it consciously where you're like changing your perspective, and you'll eventually rewire it. And that's how I reprogram myself to like think positively about my body too. Because I think a lot of us, so just as an example, a lot of us like, well, especially women, like look in the mirror and they're like, I have to change this and I don't like this. And oh my God. And then now it's like the complete opposite. And I literally look in the mirror and I'm like, I'm so hot. Like I'll think that all the time. But it's because I used to stand in the mirror, and anytime I thought something negative, I would literally force myself to think of at least 3 positive things. And then anytime I looked in the mirror, if I noticed myself pointing out something negative, I had to think positively. And so that's, again, I guess another way you can reprogram through repetition, like you were saying, as a tangible example that you can do.
No, that's a great example too, because that's really what it is. And I remember, so, I've been on this path, this journey now for the last 6 years, and I know this works, guys. I do. I watched it change my life. I've watched Kayla's life change. I mean, this is something that, together, Kayla and I are extremely passionate about. And it's because when you understand the subconscious mind, it's kind of like finding the skeleton key to life, is what I always say. Like you start to realize like, oh my God, I'm actually co-creating and interacting with my reality on a daily basis. If I'm not enjoying a situation, I just need to change my attention. So in the way we're taught how reality is that we need to do things outside of us in order to fix things. We have to work hard. We have to try. We have to go out and do a bunch of activity in order to make a difference. When in reality, the difference can be made simply by going within. The moment you start to come from the heart, the moment you start to come from the mind, like that subconscious mind, and you start to change these beliefs that have been holding you back, this is when the entire game gets flipped upside down. And now it becomes fun. Now you're like, I can't wait to see what I'm going to experience tomorrow, because it just takes a little bit of this practice to gain some momentum. And then as you gain momentum, your buy-in becomes more and more. And as you buy in more and more, at that point, you start to see just how much you're affecting the world that you live in and the world that you're experiencing. See, we act like there's this one absolute world that we all occupy, but in reality, we're all really in our own worlds, and we're experiencing a story together, if you will. And so what I mean by that is, you can take like a family, for example. Let's say there's 4 siblings, and they all come over for Christmas one year. Okay? Well, those 4 siblings are all going to experience that Christmas party or that Christmas experience in 4 different ways. If one of these siblings is right now going through a divorce, they're going to experience it differently than the sibling who just got engaged. So to one, this Christmas was the worst Christmas of my life. I absolutely hated it. Everything was uncomfortable. I wasn't enjoying myself. Where the flip side, the other sibling is saying, this is the best year of my life. This was the best Christmas we ever have. I'll never forget this, in a million years. This means the world to me. My family is so special. They're all in the same situation, 2 completely opposite, situations or experiences, I should say. And this is how everything is, guys. We act and pretend like life is so black and white, when in reality, that couldn't be further from the truth. Life is literally just shades of gray. And how we interact with an experience, how we, go into a situation with our intent, like today's going to be a great day, this is going to be a good experience, how we're talking to ourselves, the self-talk that we have during that experience, actually changes the physical outcome of how we're experiencing something. And again, I know this is true because I've done it in my life for the last 6 years.
Yeah, and once you start doing it, I think you just like start noticing it everywhere. Like there's just no other way after that. Like once you realize that, you're like, this is still me every time. And I think like it's funny because in everyone's perception, this is why people argue, because they're like, no, this is true, but it's like literally everything's true and nothing's true at the same time. Like everything just is, and then it doesn't have a meaning until you place a meaning on it, which is why you were saying earlier to put like a positive meaning, and no matter what meaning you place on it is what you're going to experience. So technically, and everyone's right in the sense that like what they experience is what they experience because of their perception of it. And so that's why I'll hear people always come to me and be like, I don't know, all these coaches said different things. I'm like, we're all right. It's literally like all different avenues to reach the same point. And so it's literally whatever you perceive it as.
I like that you said that, because you're absolutely correct. They are all right. And see, it's where you're coming from, because how this reality works is it's what do you believe? What's your intent? And people are like, oh, that's nuts. Oh, that's crazy. But how you look at a situation is the only way that you're going to experience that situation. And the moment that this clicks for you is when things really start to change.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And I think I'm trying to think of ways that we could tell them, different ways I tell clients too, like when you're feeling anxious or weird, because I know we said breath work and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But something else you said earlier was like feeling the emotion. I think that's like so important. It's something that, especially in Law of Assumption with like mindset work in that community, I've seen that like push so heavily to like instantly flip the thought. Like as soon as something happens, you're like, no, that's not happening, and like ignore the 3D, which is a lot of people say, and then choose something else. But I've actually noticed, because of that phrase, what you resist persists. That's so true. Like whenever you actually like allow yourself to just be like, I do feel this way, your ego immediately is just like, okay, we're validated. And then it's like, then you can go from there and be like, okay, now I can change it to something else instead of constantly trying to fight the 3D.
So when people say like ignore the 3D and things like that, what is being said there is, so as we're experiencing, like right now, as I'm experiencing this with Kayla in this room, filming this right now, every moment is fleeting and gone. And what I mean by that is, as soon as we're done with this, it's over, etc. And so when somebody says like ignore the 3D, what they're implying or what they're trying to say is this is a delayed reflection of what's actually going on. So if you buy into this delayed reflection and you're saying, hey, this is still not what I want, this is still not what I have, you're buying into something that's already fleeting and gone. And it's in the conscious effort of the mind, putting the intent on something like, oh, yeah, I understand right now is going on. It's not what I picture, but it's because this is a delayed reaction and it's coming. It's on its way. Like you are now creating into the experiences that are to come next, not reacting to the experience that is currently fleeting. And so it's not that you're ignoring or putting your head in the sand or anything like that. You're acknowledging, hey, I understand this situation's like this right now, but I also understand that where my intent is and what I'm focused on is where I'm going towards. And this experience is something that I'm not enjoying, that I don't want to experience. So I'm going to let that continue to, go on as I move forth towards my goals, towards my end goal.
Yeah, I agree with that too. That's honestly true. Just because I've seen that so much in the community of just like ignore it. People are like, I can't ignore it. And I'm like, well, you don't have to ignore it. It's like the more you accept it. And I think
you shouldn't ignore it.
I know. Well, you can. I've seen people completely manifest stuff, be like, that didn't happen, whatever, and then it will go away.
Yeah.
But
because they have no resistance.
Yeah,
they're
and
just
I've
saying,
done that
whatever.
with stuff too. I've literally done. I've just been like, whatever, that's not happening, and it just doesn't. But also sometimes when you feel resistance, instead of trying to like blatantly fight it, like what you said, just acknowledging that this is just delayed 3D. What most people do is then they react to it even more, and then they end up, because everything's coming from the inside out, creating more of it, and then they're like, the reaction creates more, and then you experience more, and then your mind's like, oh, I knew that was true because I experienced it again. Instead of like, it's okay if you react, but I always say like, what are you going to do about it after? Like, okay, I now see that I reacted because of this, and then acknowledging like, okay, this was a reflection of like what belief, what story do I have about that. That's literally the only way it could show up in your reality, is if you have a story about it or a belief about it. And then I always just say, like, especially now, I used to be like really good about being delulu. Like I just be like, this isn't happening. I just like live in like a dreamland, and now I just can't do that for some reason as much. I just think, not that I can't, but it's just like way less resistant if I'm just like, oh, this is happening, whatever. And then I'm like accepting it, not as true forever, because I used to hate when people would say accept it. I used to be like, oh my God, I can't accept. That means I'm just like accepting this is my reality. But it's not accepting it as forever true. It's just like, this is what's happening right now, but I know I'm going to change it. That is like so much. You can instantly just feel relief when that happens.
But that's like, because again, you have no resistance. When you're like, okay, yeah, this situation is what it is. I know what's unfolding. I just don't see it yet. So it's not like you're absolutely accepting the situation as it is. But it's in the us trying to be like, oh, I don't like this, so I'm going to ignore it. That energy, that thought process, that's actually resisting what you want. And that's why, like you were saying with the delulu thing, when people are like, oh yeah, it doesn't bother me, I let it go, there's no resistance there. And so yeah, of course that just fades away and the new keeps coming, because there is no past. The past is a bunch of stories that we carry around with ourselves and say, hey, this happened, and look, I swear I have a picture of it. And it's like, okay, you're showing me a picture of something in the now, and you're saying this happened 10 years ago, and it's like, okay, but these are all stories that you've carried with yourself. So you have stories of what type of person you are, how your parents treated you, there's all sorts of stories that we carry with ourselves. And I had this too, and it's hard to let go of them until you see what's going on. You see that, hey, this is just a computer system, and I have a lot of bad old programming on this hard drive. And so I'm going to begin to reprogram this hard drive. And when we're talking about the hard drive, we're talking about the subconscious mind.
Yeah, and I think that's true for everyone too. Like when you first start looking at the subconscious, and it's because you're looking at the old stories from the character. I think when you're like, no, this happened to me, like, and your ego just really wants to be validated. Like it really wants to be like, no, this happened. And so that's why it's so hard to let go of them. And then when you realize that it's a story and you're looking at it from the subconscious instead, or like separate from it, that's when you're like, oh, this literally is programming. And I think it helps to look at it like a computer too, because then you realize how literal the subconscious is. It's not like, I see so many people be like, but I've been trying for the manifestation forever and it's not here. It's not a reward system. Like, oh, I've been trying forever. Here is this. It's like if you keep trying to get something, the universe is like, keep trying to get it. It's like a perfect mirror.
Correct.
And so it's your subconscious is just very literal. And so if you tell it like, I'm trying to get this, it goes, okay, try to get it. It doesn't go like,
keep trying,
oh, yeah.
keep trying.
It's
keep
like,
trying.
and what that means is like, so I coach mostly SP people who want a specific person. If you are new to that means like a person is everyone in your reality. The way that Bashar describes it is like you're the main character of your reality, and then everyone else shows up with the story that you have about them, is what he says. And so when you go to manifest a person, I see this all the time with people who constantly are doing techniques, and they're coming from this place of like, this person doesn't want me and I'm trying to get them to do this. And then that person has to keep on showing up in a way that makes you feel like you have to keep trying, whether they get into another relationship, whether they completely reject you, whatever way. And this is just a tangible example, so you can see what I mean, of like, that's how they'll reflect back to you, keep trying. Or like if you keep on trying to get money, the universe will be like, okay, here's more bills, so you have to keep trying to get money. And that's what I mean by the reflection will show different circumstances to you to prove that story true, basically, is all that's happening.
Yeah. One way that I heard this, that was like a really good visual that will help, hopefully, others listening to this, is I forgot who it was that I was listening to, but they were explaining it like this. They said, okay, like, Kayla, I want you to look around the room right now. Okay?
Oh, I know this. Yeah,
look around the room. Okay, so I want you to look around, and I want you in your head to now close your eyes, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to tell me everything in this room that was the color red, okay? So now I want you to open your eyes again, look for the color red, tell me everything. All right, close them. All right. Now, Kayla, tell me everything in the room that was colored blue.
Yeah, and you can't.
And you go, what? I was just looking around for red, I don't know what was blue. This is a perfect example of how the subconscious mind works, which is whatever your subconscious beliefs are. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'll never make enough money. I'm not attractive enough. That's the only thing playing in your mind. So when your eyes are closed, that's the only thing you're listening to. And then when you open your eyes, all you see is, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I don't make enough money. I'm not attractive enough. And you're surprised. And you said, I don't get it. Every day I feel like shit, and I hate life. I hate everything. This is all I experience. And it's because that's all you're looking for. And as soon as you begin to change these beliefs, and it feels weird starting to tell yourself, hey, I forgive you. Hey, I love you. Hey, you've got this, all these different positive, new reinforcements, and you feel like you're lying to yourself. You feel like you're faking it, all this stuff. This is how you create real change, because right now, all you see is negative because that's all you're looking for. When you start to look for positive, there's all this positive in this room, and we're not looking for it because we're too hung up on the negative. And I just thought that was such a great example when he did that, because it's true, all right, close your eyes, you look around, you see everything, close them, okay, now tell me everything that's
something
blue.
That's good about that too is like the blue stuff, it's not that it didn't exist or it wasn't happening, you just didn't notice it. So same with manifestation, that's how I always describe it. Like, people will be like, but nothing's happening, it's literally happening probably in front of you. There's evidence probably all the time that you're getting the manifestation, but you're so focused on it's not here that you're only seeing it's not here. And your brain literally, as a filter, like your reticular activating system, its job is to literally like scan and then be like, whatever you're focused on, it shows you that only. So that's what I was just using with the red and the blue. It's like you're like, okay, look for red. My RAS is like, okay, red only, and then it just doesn't even see any blue. And so that happens with everything.
Yep.
So your experience, like, it won't even show you where you have money or where you're abundant. It's just like, okay, I'm only going to focus on the bills.
And the abundance is there, the money is there, the good things are there, the opportunities are there, the job is there, all of it. You're just only seeing the red. And it's because that's all you've programmed the subconscious, the computer, to look for. You've never told the computer that there's other options out there. You've never told the computer that there's, great things. There's love, that there's, wealth, that there's abundance all out there. But as soon as you start to change this self-talk, all of a sudden you're like, this just happened. Oh my God, I got this promotion. I met this person at work and it led to this. Like, everything, guys, everything in your life right now, I don't care how dead end of a job you're working. I don't care how bad a relationship is. Everything right now, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. And when you when you wake up to this, when you have awareness that, oh my God, I'm participating in this reality. Oh my God, I'm buying into this. I believe this is the way I deserve to be treated. I don't believe I'm worthy enough to make this amount of money. You start to see all the negative programming you have and you go, whoa, whoa, whoa. I am no longer going to talk to myself like this. And so you start to change it. And like Kayla was saying, you flip the script. So when something comes up, you go, whoa, that is not how I feel. I am worthy. I am abundant. I am this. And you start to relax and you allow yourself to feel it. Like we were talking about with the nervous system is the key to the subconscious. When I learned how to relax, my life changed for me. I didn't realize how high strung I was. I didn't realize how I was always pushing myself. Like I didn't believe I had earned the right to relax. I thought I didn't have enough money to relax. I thought I hadn't, accomplished enough. All of these stories, I was not ever allowing myself to relax. And it's in relaxing, it's in that moment where all like abundance and opportunity begins to come to you, because now you're interacting with the field. You're chilling out and you're going, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm attracting these situations. I don't have to chase them. And this is a whole new way of living, because I was, grew up in a lifestyle and grew up in a time where it was, you got to grind, if you're not hustling, you're going to be left behind. Competition is out there. You better go get your piece. All of that is total bullshit. It's all wrong. Like, truly, it's all wrong. There is no competition except the competition in your head. The pie is infinite. There's no this amount of money only available for this amount of people. Like, that's just bullshit. It's literally infinite. And the opportunities are endless. And when you know this on a deep level, and you know that just around the corner could be a miracle, just around the corner could be your big break, and you start to relax into, hey, this is pretty sweet, I love myself, I forgive myself. This loving, this forgiveness, it begins to really change and impact how you live your life.
It does. And I think too, the competition thing is totally true, because people always ask me what about this coach, and I'm like, they're all great, we're all right. Because when you start just honestly with everything, not just with competition, but when you start focusing on yourself and just being I'm not really worried about what these people are doing, I'm just gonna focus on becoming the best version of myself. That's when you just don't, not that you don't care about other people, but you're just oh, they're also doing great, awesome, but I'm just gonna do even better and focus on myself, whatever. But also other ways they can reprogram the subconscious mind too, because I know flipping the thought like that and constant redirection, that actually gets easier. I feel when I first started doing this, I really had to redirect a lot of times, because your mind's just so used to thinking that way, and that neural pathway is really strong because you fired those synapses a million times. I'm not good enough, I'm not whatever. And so when you start trying to build a new neural pathway, your mind is obviously going to want to go back to what's comfortable. So I think at first a lot of redirection happens, and then over time, now that I've been doing this for a long time, I almost never have to redirect, or if I do, it's not a big deal. It's just kind of oh yeah, I was doing that, whatever, and I just go back to the story, because now that neural pathway is stronger. But I think there's easier ways you can reprogram other than just repetition with the thinking mind too.
Will you give them the example, the neural pathway, like the mountain?
Oh yeah, I'll do that too.
Because this is a good one. So
basically, when you, this is not my analogy. You told me this and I don't remember. Was it Dr. Joe Dispenza?
No, I don't think it was Dr. Joe. I forgot where I heard this. Go ahead.
Okay, well, this isn't our analogy, but basically this is the perfect analogy to think about how your mind works. So basically, when you've thought the same way your whole life, I'm not good enough, I'm not this, all that 0 to 7 programming, it's basically skiing down a mountain, and that path is really dug in because you've skied down it a million times. It knows exactly where every single tree is, exactly where every single turn is. So it's it loves that path because it's comfortable. But then you start all of a sudden being no, I am good enough, I am chosen. You start skiing down a new path. Your mind does not know what to expect. It doesn't know on the new path where the turns are. It doesn't know any of that. It's not used to it. It's not dug in. And so
it's uncomfortable of a ride
yeah.
because there's no path. You're on the snow and you're falling over and you're like, oh shit, I don't like this.
And
this is uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable.
I better go back to my old path.
Yeah. So your mind keeps going back. And then the more that you redirect to the new one and you keep on redirecting, eventually your mind gets used to that one. The path gets dug in. And the more you stay over here in the new one, the old path just eventually fills in with snow and you just don't think that way anymore. Like when I think about how I used to think, oh my gosh, I just like would never think the way I thought like 5 years ago. Like that person's like completely foreign to me. Like I'm
completely
just like, how?
It's a past story.
And that was like so normal for me at the time. And so that is kind of how it works. And like after you've redirected enough times, it sticks. But I also think there's different things you can do to work with your subconscious so it's not so hard. Like one, sleep tapes at night are just like, if you can listen to sleep tapes or subliminal tapes at night, your conscious mind's just gone while you're sleeping. And your subconscious always has to be awake, because when you were in caveman days, you had to be able, I don't know, there's probably a better way to say that. But
you're right. You're totally right.
Like you had to listen for danger, basically, for like tigers or whatever.
And you're right. The subconscious is always listening.
So that's why your brain is wired to do that, to like always listen. That's why your alarm works and wakes you up and stuff. And so if you're putting on affirmation tapes, it goes straight to your subconscious, because when you're sleeping, like I said, the filter's gone. So when you're awake, the filter's on. And that's why sometimes it's way harder, because you're using the 5% of your brain. And that 5%, like I said, filters everything through the beliefs that are already there. So if you're like, I'm loved, I'm chosen, and you don't believe it, it's because your mind's doing its job and trying to filter it through, like, no, we're not. What are you talking about? And so when you're sleeping, a sleep tape's always good to help reprogram. I've just like put on tapes, and I've just noticed people will start saying something, like a certain phrase to me over in my reality, like over and over again. And then I'm like, that's weird. And I'll like go back and listen to the sleep tape, and it was always in that. You can make your own. You can listen to subliminal so you don't have to hear it. You could obviously hypnosis, we both love, and that's like, in my opinion, the best way to reprogram the subconscious mind. But there's different ways like that you can support it, so it doesn't have to be so hard during the day with like the constant flipping of the thoughts. Like it gets exhausting, in my opinion, and you get burnt out easily.
Yeah, so like that's the best way to kind of understand the subconscious mind and how it works, is understanding that it's first coming to like this level of awareness that, hey, I have a series of underlying habits and beliefs that have been governing and controlling my entire everyday being. You know, how I look at myself, how I feel about myself, my actions, my behavior, all that. So like with that being said, and these neural pathways that we've developed, it's simply changing these neural pathways, right? And so it's like flipping the script. It's like putting new information, rewriting the subconscious, you know, with like the affirmation tapes at night or with subliminal messages. I've done this for years, and it's because, so as adults, you know, we're not in that theta state all day anymore like we are 0 to 7. We're in a theta state like 10, 15, 20 minutes before bed. And before we kind of fall asleep, our subconscious opens wide open. This is why it's great, you know, to listen to these type of affirmation tapes, subliminals, you know, at night as you're going to bed. Same thing with like your hypnosis tapes and things like that. And the first 15, 20 minutes that you wake up, your brain is wide. It's in that theta state, etc. So when you first get up, do not grab your phone and look at your phone and start scrolling through anything. I don't touch my phone for the first hour and a half of my day. You want to wake up and you want to lay there in bed. You want to feel joy. You want to like smile. You want to say, I am so grateful for this moment, you know, or I am so grateful for this. You know, we can all find something to be grateful for, whether it's family, friends, you know, a roof over our head, anything. Start to give some gratitude, like right out the gate. Start to feel good. And all of this sounds all cute and nice and all this stuff, but it really works. And I know this, again, I've been practicing this now for years, and this changed my life. And so like I can confidently share this with people, like, hey, you can get out and you can do a full 180 from what you thought was possible simply by learning how the mind works. Right now, you think you are this character, and you are not that character. It's somebody you've been playing for 10, 15, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45 years. You've been playing this character saying, this is who I am. And it couldn't be further from the truth. No, this is a bunch of stories that you've held on to and kept repeating day in, day out to your friends, your family, your coworkers about who you are. You are whatever you say you are. And that's how powerful this experience is. And when you take your power back and you no longer need the world to tell you how you feel about yourself, this is when you change everything.
I totally agree with that. I think, I honestly, the subconscious is literally everything too. So I think if you can study anything, that's what I would study.
This is foundational, So like, if I'm working with somebody or somebody comes up to me and asks me about, what did you do, to find success in like business, or, with work in my company or anything like that. The first thing I tell people is learn how the subconscious mind works. That's exactly what I say to them. I don't try to give them any, spiritual advice. I don't try to I tell them, learn how your subconscious works, because this is the key to everything. If you can learn and understand what the subconscious is, you will then be able to have awareness when, you get frustrated or this happens or something comes up. There's like this higher sense of you going, hey, I don't want to react this way. I don't like the way this feels. Why am I reacting this way? And in that moment, you're actually changing your actual like makeup. You're changing the situation. You're changing everything about it, because no longer are you identifying as that feeling or as that emotion or as that habit, but you're the awareness behind it. And you see that you can manipulate that feeling. And you can say, hey, I don't have to feel this way. I don't have to hold on to that like I have been for years. And all of a sudden you feel lighter and better. And you do this day in, day out, day in, day out. And after a week, 2 weeks, a month, you're going to be like, where has this been my whole life? I have been holding myself back my whole life. When I realized how this works and, how reality works, I was flabbergasted because I was like, I've been my own worst enemy my whole freaking life. I've been telling myself I can't do this, or nobody's going to like that, or that's stupid, or people are going to judge me, or all of these things. And it was me saying this. And then I was surprised when I experienced that, because that's where my attention was, and that's where energy flowed, and it became a reality. So I started to change that attention and say, hey, what if this works out? What if it turns into something great? And all of a sudden things started working out and things started to turn into something great. And I went, holy shit, this reality that we were all taught is not real. This comes down to our perception, and this comes down to our emotions, thoughts, and beliefs. We're not all living on this absolute plane like we've been told.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think it gets easier over time. I think like when you first start, it's like anxiety inducing, but I also remember that like weird epiphany I had where I just was like, oh, nobody has any choice but to show up how I like assume they're going to show up. Like, and I remember like everything in my life made sense. I still remember sitting in the backyard of my old house, and I was just like it all just like made sense in one moment. And I was like, everything I've ever experienced is just because of me. And I was like, whoa. And it was so weird. I instantly like just let go of any animosity towards anyone in my entire reality. And I was like, this is just me the whole time. Yeah. And it was a weird feeling. But I remember being like, wow. I
know what you mean. That's how it felt for me. Like when I learned how to like forgive and stuff. See, if you're at home and you're sitting there going, I just can't forgive this one person. I just can't forgive my mom. I can't forgive my dad, or I can't forgive this sibling or this, relationship. The best thing that you can do for yourself is forgive that person. And the reason you're not forgiving them is you're not forgiving yourself. And as soon as you start to forgive yourself for all these stories that you've told yourself, you then your heart like begins to open, and you realize that everything that person that you thought was doing something to you was never doing anything to you. It was thoughts and feelings you had about yourself being expressed through the action of others, and you experiencing that. And so you literally are changing history when you begin to forgive, when you begin to love, when you begin to reprogram. You're actually like physically changing past events and future events in the moment.
I've seen that with clients a lot too, which I don't know. I want to share this one story, but I'm not going to because I didn't get his permission. But I had one client who like completely changed just by changing his mindset now, completely changed like whole events that happened in the past, like to the point where it was like showing up on his phone. Yeah. And I think like also,
and we think that's like impossible or not true. And it's guys, if you understand like just how much we've been duped about how reality works, you would be like, what? Like, if any of this sounds like, oh, it can't be true, I'm sorry, but we have been tricked about how reality works. We've been taught, like, hey, this is what life is. You get up, you work a job, you pay your bills, you pay taxes, you rinse and repeat, and then you retire and die. That is such a bullshit narrative that we've been fed, and that's not what life is, and we buy into it. We're the ones keeping that narrative alive. And so, like, we have been duped our whole lives thinking that reality is outside of us when reality is actually inside of us. And this is what all the great sages and teachers have been saying for thousands of years. Mm-hmm. And we're out here pretending, oh, we know the science. Well, the science, neuroscience, quantum physics, all of this has shown us.
It proves it true.
Perception is the only thing that creates reality.
And something too about the forgiving people, like if even if it's not forgiving somebody, but if there's something that like you can't stop thinking about, or you just like can't let go of, that's when I always ask, like, how is this keeping me safe, basically? Because sometimes you'll hold on to it because you think that it's keeping you safe in some way. Like, it's keeping you in some sort of like ego bubble in some way too. And so sometimes I'll ask myself that, like, why am I holding on to this story? Like, what story am I trying to hold on to? And it's not even about whatever thing it's about, whether it's a person or not, too. And I think I have a funny story too about them, which just happened with the dinner, when we were eating dinner, and like with the quantum physics thing of like jumping realities. So like, I literally thought that I broke my ankle last night because it hurt so bad, and then it hurt during the day too, and I was like, I'm just gonna do a meditation and quantum jump to reality, because there's infinite realities that exist at the same time, or infinite possibilities. And I was like, I'm just gonna quantum jump to like a reality where my foot is like not hurting and not broken. And literally I had a bruise at the bottom of my foot, and I came out of the meditation, it didn't hurt, the bruise was gone. And we were telling Xander, I was telling my son this, and he was like, that's not true, that's impossible. Like, what did he say? And
yeah,
he was like,
exactly that.
He's like, you can't do that. And I was like, yeah, you can, I just did it. And so
but you gotta remember, that's the world we grew up in, and we were taught that, and we were conditioned that way.
Mm-hmm. No, I know, that's what he's experiencing too.
Mm-hmm.
But like, that's so like, I would have thought someone was insane if they said that to me like maybe 5-6 years ago.
So now let's take Kayla's example and let's look at like the science. Okay, so recently they did these studies where they actually took a group of people, and they had a group of people lifting weights, actually physically lifting weights, right? And then to build muscle. And then they had a group that was not lifting weights, but was picturing themselves lifting weights. Never actually lifted weights. So they did this for, I don't know, let's just say 30 days in this study. Well, after 30 days of this study, both groups increased muscle mass. And the only difference was the group that didn't have the muscle, or did not have the weights, was like, I think it was like 2% behind the amount of muscle mass. So rather than increasing by like, I think it was like 15-20%, they increased by 13% or 18%. And they never picked up a weight. All they did was picture themselves in their mind lifting a weight. So you would say, that's physically impossible. But it's clearly not. We have the studies, we have the tests that back all of this up. I have never touched a weight. I pictured myself lifting weight, and I amassed just as much muscle mass as somebody who was actually physically lifting that weight. This is nuts. Why aren't we taught this? Why aren't we told this? Ask any great football player, basketball player, baseball player, golfer, what they're doing when they're out there playing a sport, and they'll tell you, I visualize. Every single one of them will tell you they visualize themselves making the basket, putting the ball in the hole, getting that touchdown.
A lot of those people understand that. Like, there are so many people in hypnosis that like their main clients are like Patty Freeman, who trained us. Her main clients were all the major
baseball players, football
major
players,
sports, because they know that. And Psycho-Cybernetics talks about that too. The book, I have it over there. I can't remember who wrote it.
So if our stars, yeah, that's a good book.
That talks all about how they pictured themselves going out before.
But you know, you look at this, and we have all these like multi-million-dollar athletes getting this hypnosis, training and There's visualization training. And are they crazy? Or is it, your pissed off uncle who's barely, hanging on at a job saying the whole world's out to screw me. It's, the man's fault, it's government's fault, all this. No, it's your fault. and it's how you're looking at life, and it's how you're talking to yourself. And this idea that life is hard only for you is something that you've created in your head. And this is a hard pill to swallow, because a lot of people, will never admit to something like, I'm participating in this experience that I'm calling hell. It was very hard for me to admit it early on when I started this practice. I was like, of course I don't want this. Of course, I wouldn't be bringing this on myself. Yeah. And it's not that. Life doesn't give you what you want. Life gives you what you are.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly.
When you understand that, holy shit, life starts to change. If you're pissed off, angry, hate the world, why would you be surprised that you experience anything but shitty people, shitty events, and getting screwed over all the time? That's all you're emanating. That's all your frequency that's going out. And so as science begins to, roll out more and more of these, studies and, results and tests, we're going to see this become commonplace, in our school systems, and that's going to be beautiful.
And I honestly think it has, to an extent. Like, there's more people, I think, awake than ever. Like, the fact that I can there's so many, like, famous coaches and stuff, like, on TikTok even, and Instagram and stuff. People just, like, freely talk about it. And people, like, make jokes about it now. They're like, oh, I'm manifesting. And just, like, in mainstream media. Mm-hmm. That's all a sign to me that it's becoming more and more prominent too. And like even Sky School teaches them breath work, they teach them meditation and all that. And so I think it's becoming more and more prominent. I think it'll be like, honestly, years from now, I think it'll be like totally weird that we didn't think that way.
Yeah, we're gonna look back and be like, wait, people used to not know that, how they talked about themselves mattered. Mm-hmm. Hey, we used to pretend that like what's it called, the world outside of you.
Well, and plus it feels,
depend on how
and
you
I don't
feel.
want people to feel bad about it, because it honestly is like, it feels so real that it's like, of course, like you're gonna be like, oh yeah, like this has happened to me though, and like your ego's gonna act up at first, because it's like, what do you mean, like this is the way I've always thought. And
we've been there, and that's what we come from, and so we get it.
Yeah, exactly. Because I remember thinking that. But I still remember also, like, I think the more playful you can go about it is the best. Because I remember I just, like, when I lost weight, I literally wasn't, like, super serious. I wasn't like, I have to get so strict. And then I literally was like, oh, like, I learned about subconscious beliefs. And I was like, oh, what beliefs must I have about my weight then, or my body? And I just, like, started thinking, like, oh, I just didn't want to be seen. And it just, like, made sense. And I was like, that makes sense. Like, that's why this happened. And then I just started, like, I was like, oh, what would I do if like I didn't care about being seen, or like I wanted to be seen? So I started dressing differently, acting differently. Mm-hmm. And then it just like happened. I was like, oh, okay. And like that was like one of the things that it was more of like a playful thing. And so I think the more that you can like play around with it, and it's not so serious, like I need this thing to happen, it'll be a lot easier to reprogram.
You're totally right.
Resistance makes it harder, in my opinion.
You're totally right. But we just wanted to kind of share our thoughts on the subconscious with you guys. We appreciate you all for tuning in to The Conscious Couple. We're going to be coming to you guys each week with different types of topics, content, things that we love, things that we want to share. But this is kind of foundational stuff with the subconscious mind. So we really wanted to kick things off with that information. Baby, got anything left?
No, all I would say is, if they have any suggestions, you should totally let us know in the comments or anything like that.
When you say suggestions, what do you mean?
For us to talk about.
Oh,
in
yeah.
Future weeks or anything.
Any type of topic, concept.
Any topic or any. We could even do like a Q&A one time if there's like a bunch of short questions.
I would like to do that. I think it would be fun too for us to get some couples on here and do some couples chat, type of things where we have, the male and female perspective. Because that's really been twisted by, media, society, what we're taught, how the male's supposed to act, how the female's supposed to act, all sorts of stuff.
And how we don't see the reflection,
yeah,
too. And so I think that's something we'll end up talking a lot about, too. I was like, seeing the reflection. But, yeah, I think we'll end up having a lot of good ideas. So,
yeah, we're excited.
Come on every week. So, yeah, we're excited about it, too. So, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And, yeah, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next week.